Good morning. It's Joyful Christian Hermit. Well, I did have a couple of my light bulb, by the way. My lampshade was making the light too dark at night to try to read. So off went the shade. Anyway, yesterday, I did 2 videos and I kept losing them. Well, the first one I deleted, thought it had too much, just yap about situation going on. Nothing big or anything. Just trying to help a family member with a job, hard job it's going to be, and how we had a estimator come, and the bid was just so high. So we are going to end up doing our own cement grinding. So I ordered some parts for my little angle grinder this morning, and we'll rent a big cement grinder and get a big ventilator mask, because cement dust would be terrible. In fact, I said I need to do it. She needs to spare her young body and lungs for her career. and I'm dispensable. So, but I need energy. I'm just so wiped out. It must be the anemia or pain. So I've been all I can do with, I can't do much about the anemia. I'd love to have a couple blood transfusions, like the Pope got. He got blood transfusions and IVs and all kinds of body boosters. But so anyway, but then I did another video on love, which I'll try to repeat. It's things that LS wrote that I thought were excellent in a comment. And somehow I finished it. It was probably a little too long, as usual. And then it was lost, just totally gone. I must have accidentally, my screen goes dark, so I touched the pad here, and it must have turned it off or stopped it or deleted it or something. So I gave up last night. I was so tired because I'd driven over and chipped out only maybe about 12 tiles. At most 12, I suppose. And so I just tire easily. But the dogs are gone today. I have another 6 hours left. So of just freedom and peace and quiet. So I'm going to try to get some things done. So this will be Lenten Uplift 13. I'm behind today. Are we on 13 or 14? I'll have to look. Anyway, I had mentioned the imitation of Christ, and I thought it would be good to read an example here on St. Joseph's Day. I have the book, but who knows? It's in a pile of books over there. But Thomas à Kempis, and I even have the one that is this one that's translated by Ronald Knox, English writer, excellent. So this one, Thomas à Kempis was a monk, and it was a spiritual treatise that he wrote. Just beautiful, of how we can imitate Christ, and gives all these different examples, these different little treatises, these little readings. It's something you could just have daily as a daily pep talk, uplift, to try help us remember how to imitate Christ. So this will be a sample, and it's 15th century, so the 1400s. This one particular one came from Book 2, Chapter 2 and 3. So, question mark, why do you not perceive the wooden beam in your own eye? If people would only be humble about their own shortcomings, how little it takes to disarm ill feeling, how little it costs to put things right. It's humble people God protects and preserves. God loves and comforts. He stoops down and gives his grace, lavishly raising the humble to heights of glory. as soon as neglect has done its work. Such a one he chooses for his confidant, beckons to him gently and calls him apart. Only a humble person takes it calmly when put to the blush. What does it matter? When embarrassed, if a humble person will put it in perspective. It is God, not the world, that gives him countenance. Never think that you have made any progress until you have learned to regard all as your betters, other people as being better than us. It's just a good stance to have to help keep us humble and to ensure that we won't think that we're always the better ones. Then we get uppity, as is said. Peace in your own soul first of all. Then you can think about making peace between other people. Peaceable folk do more good than learned folk do. When someone is at the mercy of their own feelings, they misinterpret the most innocent of actions, always ready to believe the worst, whereas the peaceable see good everywhere. At peace in themselves, they aren't suspicious of others. It's when you become discontented and unbalanced that your mind is torn by suspicions. There is no rest in you, no rest for those around you. You are always saying the wrong thing and missing your chance of doing the right thing. You are jealous about your rights and forget that you have duties. If you will begin by having a high standard yourself, then you can afford to have a high standard for other people. That was the prayer I made about 3 weeks after I was finally confirmed a Catholic. It was like maybe the first week of September, second week in 1995, God had started to show me some bad things. I had to admit that this priest, who was so bright and could be a good leader and all, but that he was mean. Mean and would lose his temper and envious and resentful. He had already shown himself to me in ways that if I'd had sense, I would have just left and not come back. But I loved the church. I loved the church. I loved what I was learning that was so much more than I had known before as a Protestant. All the history and all of the people who lived all those years and did great things soul-wise, spiritually. So it opened up a world to me that I did not know. And devotions. And of course, the Mass itself was so glorious, so deep, and, it's endless what you can gain from the Mass. Every time you fall in love with the Mass. But, and then I found out that he was behind a big, horrible gambling operation to make money, not for himself per se, but he did use it. It aggrandized him to be having that much money in the parish. He could look really great to the diocese and to the parishioners and, have this money that they didn't know how it came. They assumed it, I had at first assumed it came from parishioners donating. No, it was from people addicted to gambling. Poor people losing their week salaries, playing in this huge organized bingo place, a huge, like a industrial-sized building. It was a major gambling operation, and it was nightly. And just on the other side of the county line, and I was crushed. And I talked to him about it, and he mocked, didn't think there was anything wrong. Oh, just little innocent little old ladies playing, and then my son and I went. My son couldn't go in, I didn't realize. illegal. He was 16. He drove so I could lay down so I wouldn't have to sit to get there. And I went inside, and it was a lot of these young people, couples, poor people. I recognized some of them from town and from a dream vision that the Virgin Mary had shown me. I saw one couple that she had stood behind and had her arms around them like this. They were sitting at a table. In the dream, I didn't see what they were doing. They were at a table with something in front of them that they were paying attention to, very, focused on. And tears were coming down her face. And I saw them then in reality at that bingo place, that gambling hall, sitting there at the table, this poor couple. And I knew then what they were doing that was upsetting the Virgin Mary, gambling away their money, hoping to hit it big, as all were. And yeah, there were some old women there. I recognized them from parish and from other places, since it was huge and in another county. People from all over went, addicted. These old women addicted, and they had their little statues and holy cards and holy medals laid out around their cards, or would use them as markers, little trinkets, holy blessed items, thinking that would help them win. Elderly women I knew who were widows, they had money, but they were addicted to it, just the thrill of winning, getting more. And they would have like a dozen cards at once they'd try to play. Just not the old women so much, but the younger people. So I was crushed. And my son cried. He cried. He talked to people outside, interviewed them, and found this one young man worked in a factory, and he used all his week's wages trying to make it with bingo. And it was very sad. And I was crushed that the priest would do that, take advantage of people. He kept saying how innocent it was, and it's just social. They're just there for social reasons. Let them have some fun. No harm done. And of course, then I researched bingo is the leading lead-in for women to have gambling addictions. The main lead-in, how women get hooked on gambling. Women in particular. A lot of women playing, but a lot of men were there too, young men. And I said, well, why don't you just have a bar down there on Market Street? Have the parish have a bar. Make money that way, because the alcoholics say it's social. They're just drinking socially, just having fun. Chance to be out with friends. Well, of course, I knew he was a recovering alcoholic. Oh, no, we wouldn't do that. I said, no, because it would look bad, wouldn't it? But you can do this in the next county and keep it secret from the parishioners, how you're really getting this money to do things. So make the parish look good, renovate or this or that. And it gave him a lot of power and control to have. He made like $2 to $3 million. Newspaper had uncovered it. And so he really resented that I knew about it and that I said something. Of course it was bad. He wanted me to tell him any visions. So I told him about the Virgin Mary and how upset she was with him. And that all the trips to Medjugorje he would take on that money, and also, plus a lot left over, come back and seem like a changed person, would have his temper under control and would be nice for about 2 weeks before it would, wear off. But I said she's very upset. and told me that she would thwart that. If he did not stop it, she would thwart it. Use that word, thwart it, one way or another. So, burned down. Well, he rebuilt, had it rebuilt. Said he wouldn't, but then did. And then the people he had running it, who lived in this other county, and gave them a share of the money. Not much, but enough, so they did it. It was their job. They kept the building up, and they, hired people to do the calling, and they did the calling of the numbers out, the bingo numbers, and was his front people, so he wouldn't be directly, wouldn't seem like he was, but he was directly involved. It was his gambling operation to make money. And the bishop thought he was great. Oh, all this money he has, people must be really happy with the parish. Oh, they must be donating lots, And so then they got, the people got cancer. First the woman did, then the man also. And it still didn't stop him until they died. I think he finally got out of it. Who knows? He probably had other people. I left the parish. He got so, it wasn't just that he was angry about. He kept trying to, he kept trying to get in the way of the soup kitchen also, refused to unlock the door so I could get our food out of the refrigerators and freezers, our meats and things, and just was getting very ornery, which then would make it so we couldn't get our soup done. So I found the assistant priest, and he opened it up. But don't tell anyone that I opened it for you, so we could get our stuff. And he forbade me to go into the room because there was a wedding party going on. And then I knew the gal whose son was getting married. Oh, sure, you can walk through this room to get to the kitchen to get the food out for the open door. But no, he wouldn't let me. So it got just ugly and ridiculous, but it wasn't just the bingo hall. But I made this prayer because I was at the point 3 weeks after having been confirmed of getting my son and getting the hell out of there. As, let the Catholic Church deal with it. If that's what they were going to do, allow. And of course the parishioners, some of them knew. And too scared to say anything. They didn't want the wrath of the priest on them. But they're complicit. They were complicit. If you don't speak up, if you don't try, or if you don't leave, you're part of it. Part of crud, evil, wrongdoing. Talk about money changers in the temple. But I prayed, because that was a big turning point for me, that until I had myself perfect, that I would remain in the church, but wasn't going to have anything to do with anything that was horrible like that. And the same with my godmother and what they were into. Rabble-rousing dissenters. And she thought she had groomed me, that I would go along with it after a couple of years. I finally found out, and no, I wasn't going to join her. All that. They were miserable, angry women. And I'm not going to be that way. And I didn't need to be a priest. I'm content being a woman. And the Virgin Mary is the most powerful woman ever. So imitate her too for women. She's a great one to imitate. Her grace and her depth, her love, and her helping her son. She helps her son even now. That's what we can do. So, imitation of Christ. Why do you not perceive the wooden beam in your own eye? And that's how he ended up this section. that got me into that story of how I made my prayer, my commitment to God, that I would stay in his church and do my very best to not be looking at what others were doing that was so terrible, unless it's something I needed to make sure I wasn't involved with. And of course, to speak up. I did. I would always try with different priests when things were not good, like the one that I had to finally report. You know, if God shows us things that are very bad, we cannot be complicit in it. We must do our best to try to change the person, to help them get out of the situation or to stop the bad activity that they're in as best we can. And if they continue refusing, then get to a different parish, get to a different priest. And if no one else is going to either help, if they turn on the person who's trying to help bring good and right. But my main thing was, like he says here, if you will begin by having a high standard yourself, then you can afford to have a high standard for others. So I had to focus on my spiritual life, and I realized that was the best way to build up the church, was for me myself to strive to be holy, to be on the holy narrow pathway, and to recognize that it would be a lifelong journey and struggle, effort, and that looking to other people and seeing their flaws, about the only good that does is to double check our own. Often what we'll see in someone else, we may have going on in ourselves. Not always, but it can be. It can turn out that way, that things that we'll notice about another, in some way or shape or form, we may be doing the same thing, but just not recognize it in us. So it's okay to observe others. I think it's a learning experience. If we take it then to help us in our own examination and then correct ourselves, or to see what things we're doing that might not be exactly the same but similar, still not good. Like the one who's so hateful toward me and likes to put herself above by twisting things, leaving out portions of what I've said, and then write about it as if I had not included the other part, such as writing and making it seem that I was against everything, that the church was all temporal and I was against all that, and emptying, that I was emptying myself out, that I was so full of myself that even I was just focused on myself that much, that I was emptying myself out. It was all me, me, me. Didn't put in the part where I said how God was emptying me, and God was showing me things that needed to be emptied, but he would actually do the emptying, facilitate it, because we're nothing to God's all. I used to, for a couple of years, or maybe a year about, I referred to myself in my blog as nothing, to remind myself, to instill in me that I am nothing to God's all. And back then she would go on and on about that in her writing. So it's been a long time, that fixation and obsession with me. And that's, that's not a healthy thing, because she doesn't take what she sees in me that's always so terrible and correct herself. All the pride that's in there, that she is so great that she can twist and tear down anything I say or write. So and gets upset. Oh, one time she wrote that she could just shake me. I made her so angry because of what I would write or using. I think it was back when I would write about that I was nothing and how wrong that was. No, we're children of God, blah, blah, blah. Missed the whole point. Well, she knew it. She's a bright person, but she always just wants to find something to pick at. It says here, only a humble person takes it calmly when put to the blush. What does it matter? When put to the test, or when someone calls them out or points out something, a humble person doesn't get upset. So we're all proud, we all have it in us. Just hard to see it sometimes, isn't it, in ourselves? And that was basically my prayer, my deal. I made a deal with God that until I was perfected, I would try not to, notice, get to the point or be discouraged by others. It was horribly discouraging. I was sobbing in the church before the tabernacle. And I probably should have taken my son out because it got very ugly for him to see me mistreated. And then again in another parish with that priest who was in a terrible, sinful relationship with another priest. The diocese kept their eyes averted. They knew of it, but didn't do anything about it. And people knew. They'd see them go off together and knew they lived together for part of they had a house together on a lake, and that's where they'd go. That's where they retired to. They'd been together since seminary, I found out, and they knew. Diocese knew, Vicar General knew. And he was stalking my son, attracted to my son. Partly, I think, just because he knew he could get away with it, because he had tarnished me to the diocese, this other priest had in my hometown. It gets very ugly. And discouraging. And then you realize that God has us in a church not just for our pleasure, It's for us to help build up, to get ourselves cleaned up so that we can help build up the body of Christ and strive to be sanctified by God. And that's a lifetime of effort and focus on seeing our own falls, our own splinters and beams both. Because when I had that house, the first hermitage after my mom died, and I finally had a little money, had this little house built. It was all within my budget and everything. It was just nice, my forever home. And then I got into trees and conifers and gardening. And it was like an addiction in a way. I was infatuated, and I had this plan, this vision of how it would be, and I terraced it and created the most unusual botanical gardens. But then I had this neighbor issue, this crazy neighbor, mentally disturbed and demonic, both. And the police finally said, "You're going to have to leave." And it was the first deputy who gave me the idea, though. He says, "You're going to have to live as there's a forest between your homes." I couldn't put a fence up, a solid fence that was against the subdivision HOA rules. So that's how trees got going. I thought, trees, a forest, yes. I bought narrow upright growers and boxed myself in. I thought the back would be enough, but then she'd come to the front, threatening me and cursing, and it was horrible. So I did a front courtyard garden with these unusual trees. I got into conifers because then they could block year round. Because they had a big spotlight they shone over into my bedroom too. Shades weren't even enough, you know. So, and my son, he when he would put me down, when he came to visit, and I gave him that room to sleep in, the nice big bed. Well, this bed, it's a double bed, but it's bigger than a twin. I only had a twin bed in this bed. I gave him the nice mattress it had, a nice hard mattress. And he said, I had no idea. You said a light. He says, that's a spotlight. He says, that's intentional. And then, of course, he was awake and he had to get an early plane back to New York City. And she would wait till like 11 or midnight even and put her trash out and bang her lids because it was right beside, where my bedroom was, and to wake me up. But she didn't realize I have so much pain. I hardly sleep well anyway. It didn't matter to me. I offered it as prayer for her soul, including the big light coming in. But for him, he did go over, and they did turn it off for him. But I was under, the police said, absolutely do not talk, and I'd gotten a protective order. And there was no sense, because if they had been forced to take the light out, they would have just done other things to me. And they already did, threaten my life. And many times it was horrible. So finally left and lost all those gardens. But I'd really gotten into it. It wasn't really an addiction. I get like a creative vision. Now, artists will understand this. I'm not an artist really, but sort of have that creative. And I'll get a vision of how something's going to look. And then I really go at it. And I would meet interesting people, and I found a man in southern Ohio who collected conifers and grew them, little starts, and I got into rare conifers. The beauty of them and just the respect I have for horticulturalists. It can take them their lifetime to develop different cultivars, and they're not rich people, but they love trees, and I do too. So, and you can get miniatures. See, so I developed miniatures, and plus this wall on either side and around, and had to sold a lot, and gave away some to good friends. The spiritual dog got a beautiful I think I got him that as a gift, the skyrocket. It was a tree that is grown in Wyoming, Cheyenne area, where he was a priest there for 50 years. That's where he went from Ireland to Cheyenne, Wyoming. So he had a skyrocket tree. So anyway, it's a good thing to learn how to grow within ourselves. And I think that Thomas à Kempis's book, The Imitation of Christ, is an excellent one. But we don't need everything. We don't choose something or take turns with books. And The Imitation of Christ has good things every day. You can read them. Or something else, choose things to help us grow. There's so many good, holy people out there who left their writings. Thomas à Kempis left his writings, and he wrote one for the Virgin Mary. I guess I took it off the bed because I was, Yes, I did. I had made my list of the books I would leave here and read those, which I have been doing, and to learn and grow. But it was a good prayer that I made to not get down on others. And that's helped me love, like to love this person who's obsessed with me. You can really come to genuinely love someone, even though they, like my neighbor even, who, wanted to have me killed and would say so, shoot your gun over at her, told her adult son to do that, and other things. She would scream, and in front of guests that would come, she would scream things about me to them, that I was a danger, and had turned the whole subdivision against me. But I didn't bother. You can't go around changing people's minds. Why bother? Finally, at the end, they realized it wasn't me, it was the woman who was the problem. And then they wanted me to stay, but no, I needed to leave that area. So we just do our best and love and pray, forgive, and work on our souls. St. Joseph Day, patron of the Order of the Present Moment. It was would be 30 years ago today. 30 years ago, no, it was 29 years. It was 96 when God told me about the order of the present moment. That I'm in the order of the present moment. That's my order. And what I wear in that order is what I happen to have on in the present moment, which is my work overalls. And I'll be wearing these for a while probably, because I'm going to help the daughter grind cement off the floors from whoever put tile down in the place she bought. Used concrete as mortar rather than thin set. So there's no dissolving it, there's not really chipping it. Maybe you could do an inch by inch. It'd take a year. And we tried my angle grinder, and the dust was, too much. But we're going to use my angle grinder for small spaces. We're buying a little vacuum attachment with it that will shoot the dust into a shop vac. And I'm also getting another different kind of diamond grinding wheel. So I ordered those this morning from Home Depot. And she wanted to pay for them. I said, no, you can rent them, do a little money toward it, and then when I'm done with everything, I'll just sell all this stuff. So, donate a little toward the price, but we've got to get this done, because people from another state, a state that they have, their prices are so high, their houses were so costly, they sell those, they come here, and the workers also come here and raise the price of manual labor here to outer reach for people like us. And so that was, she was going to hire it done. So I was there, and this young couple came, a young woman and her husband. They've started a renovating business, and they do their work, which is commendable. But they mentioned they'd gone to some Schluter demonstrations to learn. Well, I've learned from watching and from YouTube and from asking questions of Tyler's. But that's how, and from my coach, my contractor in another state who coaches me on anything if I can't find out how to do it. He teaches me over the phone even, but in person he did for 5.5 years. Draw out sketches, how to do all kinds of stuff. So, but I'm old, and my daughter just thought, we'll just pay to have this done, have this concrete ground, rather than renting a grinder, a big grinder. We'll rent one also now, and have them do the tiling. And so they came, they drove up in a very nice SUV, and I sort of wondered, And they're starting this business and seem very nice, industrious young couple, nicely dressed, coming in midday that was a Monday, doing a bid. And seemed to know their stuff. I asked some questions, little trick questions to see if they knew, Yeah, they do. And I've had to learn, so it's the only way I know. So, but the bid came back just atrocious. Even just to take up the concrete in the one room. $3,000 they wanted for that. Well, we can rent the machine. We might just go ahead and rent it for the day. $196. Then we'll have to get a grinder for a disc, rent it, probably end up $250 and get a lot of sheeting, have to cover everything over and have to get a big mask, a better ventilator. I have one, but I'm going to see there might be a better one. And then I said I'm not gonna have her ruin her lungs or risk her lungs. She needs her lungs for her career, so with sports. But so I said we can do it. Remember how we carpeted? So that's a big reminder. We carpeted 2 bedrooms, did the seaming, and 2 closets on the island place. She came up and helped me. And I said, remember that. We can do this. Put your money toward your quartz countertops or something else. For the total price they wanted, even with tiling, was $12,000. But people pay them or they wouldn't have such a nice car. So, and would have been working on Monday, come in work clothes to do their bidding. So people will get what they get, and more power to them. That's half my annual income right there. So no way. Well, my daughter, I don't know what her income is. She's doing well, but she works very hard physically for her money too, and that was too much. So she agreed. Yep, and she'll have to help do a lot or else we'll see how good the ventilator is. She may need to also, or her man friend too. He was there chipping. We got all the tile about up. Not much left. So this is, a lot of encouraging others and lifting people up as far as Lenten uplifts go, and getting the beams out of our own eyes is to be able to see clearly and to encourage one another and to lift one another up with moral support too. Not just say you can do it, but I'll help you do it. I'll help. And we will do it together. And I'll come over. That's why I was over there yesterday morning. Please come, tell me what you think, And and I was glad I was there when this young couple just happened to come early to do the bidding, so I could, see they probably do an okay job, but they're just learning. I mean, probably I've done 4 bathrooms, tiled the floors in 4 bathrooms, so there's really nothing to it. Pretty cut and dried. It's just work. So it's a matter of who's doing the work. For that kind of money, we may as well do it. So I need to be pushed to do work, to build up, if I can. Say I'd love the blood transfusions. It's what I need. Get some iron in my blood. But well, anyway, this is a long Lenten uplift, but it covered a lot of territory, hopefully, and told you my stories about how I finally had to come to that point in a very real way. basically get the beam out of, or get the, stop looking at other people's, work on myself, notice myself. And pride's a very tricky thing. It's hard for us to see that in ourselves. Even in, something like trying to do this work, it's not a matter of pride, but it's a matter of thinking things through and realizing here's this couple, they're just starting out. They didn't know how to do that. They just learned. Like I had to learn how to do stuff because I didn't have money to hire people to do the island house. So I had to learn it. They were ripping me off big time. Workers, people wanting the island people. And then even people on the mainland would come over. How they wanted, I think this one guy, he wanted $8,000 to do just the rough-in plumbing for a 3/4 bath I decided to put upstairs. I had taken there was 2 bedrooms up there. I'd taken everything out. There was no, they weren't load-bearing, but I still put studs up just in case, it's a little creepy having this big room just opened up. But I had checked with Craig, and he explained load-bearing and on. It wasn't, but I added, I roughed in, framed in my 5 by 8 foot bathroom. We're going to have a shower in it with the shower would just follow the knee wall down, the other end of the shower. And in order to, a shower door to custom made was going to be $2,000. No, I got those glass blocks and I stair stepped them in there. They worked out perfectly. In fact, they were on discount and I got just enough of those glass blocks. That was the shower door with an opening with a little fun shower curtain that went to walk into it. But then the back side of the shower slanted down with the roof. And then the wall went up about 4 feet. Well, it's actually 44 inches, which I loved. I like holy numbers. 44's in the Old Testament. 40 and 44. And so anyway, 144. But then had that, and then I tiled it. Subway tile. It was a farmhouse, so subway tile was a good look for it. And had the toilet. I roughed in the plumbing. My electrician's a big guy, big strong hands, and he helped shove the big pipes in, the toilet drain pipes. Just ran it down in between the studs of the wall below, the living room below, and down under the house. That's when I realized I got to tear out all this bad plumbing under the house and just redid the whole thing. Rusty at Lowe's in Tacoma no longer works there, but when he found out what the Islanders were going to charge me just to plumb a refrigerator, dishwasher, and under my sink, $1,000 per appliance they wanted, $3,000 for that. He said, "No way, I'm teaching you what you need to learn for plumbing." So, see, people are good, but we have to stop to think, it's not a matter of pride that we can do this. I haven't used a big cement grinder before. And it'll be messy. But I YouTubed it and it's doable. And a young woman and her husband were going to do it. Why not an old lady with her daughter and her fiance? Why not us do it? We will. We just don't. She doesn't have that kind of money to spend like that. She thought if it's $1,000 to get all that concrete out, which I realized would be at least $750 more than everything we'd need, including the plastic to tape everything off and mask everything off because the dust will get everywhere. And including a ventilator mask. So, I wouldn't have lost the $750. I don't have that to lose. But she says, "Mom, I work and it's my money, And I agreed, she says, "I just want to get it done, But no one could come till the end of April anyway, so we have to think things through. It's not a matter of pride. Oh, we can do this. We're great. We're wonderful. No, it's thinking through rationally. Can we do it? And then thinking through, I had a reminder, well, we, by the grace of God, did those carpeted, and we hadn't done that before. The only thing I had to rent was the big stretcher bars. I bought the little knee kicker, and I bought the steamer. It was cheaper to buy them and resell them than to rent that stuff, all of that stuff. So it looked great, And the reason I did that was people from the big box stores and other carpet layers, they came out and measured the carpet, and they were doubling the amount of carpet I actually needed. And they say they take the scraps back. Well, I had already measured before they came, and I had already researched. You lay carpet a certain direction. They were going to lay it in a different direction because they didn't want to seam it. But it was a direction that it shouldn't be laid, because carpet has give to it. And if you're walking in a doorway, you want the carpet to be a certain direction, or you'll get the waves in the carpet eventually from the pressure of the people walking in a certain direction on it. So you've got to have the tighter weave going this way so that you walk against that, so it doesn't stretch out. But they didn't want to have seams, but that way it cost twice as much, or they were allowing for twice as much carpet, and then they would get it. It would be enough. They could take it and carpet a room in some house they were going to flip. A lot of these guys do their own houses to flip on the side, and they pick up all this stuff from the people that they measure who don't know the difference. And so it behooves us to know these things. And granted, like my eldest daughter, she and her husband are doing so well, and they have very high-end home, so they hire things done. That's different than a little townhome that doesn't require exclusive. And they, both of them work in positions and have the money to hire it. And her husband knows they have done their own stuff before, but now they're in a position they don't need to. But this is just a different situation. So it's not pride. It's a can-do spirit, I think, that we have to have if we need it. If we have to. If we don't have excess money, have to be more careful with how it's spent. So, but I think pride's a tricky thing for all human beings. It's probably the most difficult for us to discern of ourselves when we cross over from prudence or doing something right, or building ourselves up so that we can have the courage and confidence to try something, or crossing that line into thinking we're pretty hot stuff for having done it. So reminding her of how we did that carpeting, which she did the bulk. She did the knee kicking. My back couldn't do that. I tried it, but she was better at it. Plus, I had my bad knee then, too. I had already messed it up falling in a store, tripped. It was their fault, but whatever. I got ripped on that, but not from the store, but their insurance company. A lot of injustice out there, and you can't let it eat you. You have to calmly handle things like Thomas Aquinas says. That's how Jesus handled things. Consider all the injustice that Jesus experienced himself, but saw all around him in the world. He had a heart for women who had a lot of injustice. The woman that they were going to kill, stone her to death, because she'd had relations with a man, adultery. They weren't going to stone the man. See, Jesus took pity on the woman, told her, go and sin no more, but he stopped the men from killing her, the men who were going to stone her to death. So Jesus saw a lot and handled it. See how he handled that very smoothly. Remember, he got down and started writing in the dirt. We don't know what he wrote. Probably something that they could see that was shamed them somewhat. So maybe something Jewish law or something of loving or doing the right thing, maybe. And then told them famously, those of you who are without sin, go ahead, cast the first stone. Throw the first stone at her. And they dropped their stones and turned and walked away. Just calmly, though. So Christ is a great example of humility and how he handled himself on the cross. And before Pilate, he realized there was no sense in trying to answer Pilate's questions. It was already, he wasn't going to save himself. And he knew his mission anyway, but it wasn't like, I'm so proud I can get out of this, or I'm so proud and tough I can handle this, and I'll be, have all this glory for being crucified. He didn't think in those terms. But he recognized answering Pilate, other than just quietly. It's like how we have to be with police, It's just, you have to know there's no sense in pointing out anything to them or coming up with a defense sometimes when they're already set, or will irritate them. Why? And he knew his mission, and he was going back to the Father, so that makes a difference for us too. When we realize, like Thomas Aquinas said, what difference does it make? What does it matter, really? When we get ourselves into prideful situations or wanting to win at all costs. That's why the Lord told me, don't subject yourself anymore to that other person. I'm not going to find anything of worth to read that she'll write, because it's always got a jab at me in there. It's nothing. And he's right. I have so many great writers, saints to read their writings, Thomas à Kempis's writings to read, if I want to find something of worth, and great hermits who wrote, if I want to read something by a hermit. Not that. Jury's still way out on that person and out on me. So see, humility is always the best. And listening to God, looking to Jesus to imitate. Jesus he read from the scrolls, from the scriptures, and followed what the Father spoke of the Father. So, God bless his real presence in us. Hope in all of this yap, there's something uplifting in it, worthwhile.